Thank you. I'm very happy to be here today. Aloha.
Aloha.
That was a great introduction, and I appreciate you saying all those things. And I want to tell you, one of the things that I was able to do while living in Asia was work for Habitat for Humanity. And so I'll be sharing some information with you from Habitat for Humanity and our relationship that we had with the Center for Creative Leadership. But before I do that, I want to get to know you a little bit better. When I was in college, I had a very good professor who advised me to never assume anything about anyone. And she was right, because when I have made assumptions about people, I've most often been wrong. But I do have assumptions about you. And one of my assumptions is that probably most of you were not raised in Hawaii. Is that true? If that's true for you, will you raise your hand? Okay, that's very good. Wow, almost every single person raised their hand. So, okay, that assumption was pretty good. And then I'd like to know, are any of you from Southeast Asia? Yes? Where are you from? What part?
Northeast, where Naga and Legazpi.
Okay, very good to know. And I saw another hand over here. Yes, where are you from? What part? Okay. Anyone else from Southeast Asia? Well, you have my heart. I love Southeast Asia, and that's where I've been working for the last 6 years. And okay, I'm going to make one more assumption about you. I'm going to assume that you are here because you are interested in helping people by being a good leader. And so before I ask you to raise your hand, we're going to do a fist to 5, okay? So fist means 0. I am not here because I'm interested in helping people by being a good leader. I'm here to get 5 extra credit points for my class. Or my friend or person that I'm kind of attracted to is convinced me to come, okay? So that would be 0. You know, 1 would be, I don't know, maybe leadership, maybe one day 2. I kind of think 3 would be like, yeah, there's a possibility. 4 is like, I'm thinking maybe leadership is. 5 is like, I am all in. I am wanting to be a leader. So I'm going to say fist to 5. I'll go fist to 5, and then you put up the number that represents you. Okay? Are you ready? I need to see. Fist to 5. Fist to 5. Whoa. We got some 5s. We got a 2. We got a 0. Hey, this is really good. Okay, got some 4. All right, for those of you who had a 0 or a 2, and you're here for other reasons than being like the world's best leader, I'm hoping that what you'll get out of this is that leading people starts with leading yourself first. And self-leadership is really important. And when you are a leader, sometimes you're a leader because you signed up to be the leader. But most often, you find yourself in a leadership position because you were thrust into it. You were put into leadership, and you find yourself in a leadership position that you really didn't ask for. Has that happened to any of you? Yes. And if it hasn't happened, it probably will happen. And so leadership has a lot to do with learning and changing. And I have a quote that I want to share with you. I want you to read this quote. "The fear of not looking good is one of the greatest enemies of learning." This is by Peter Senge, who is a scholar and has written some great books about this. When you read this quote, what does it mean to you? Does anybody feel brave enough to extrovert and share what that means to them? Because you're afraid of not looking good, maybe? The fear of not looking good is one of the greatest enemies of learning. Think about that. When you are challenged with a situation where you need to learn, and maybe you need to ask a question or do something for the first time and you're afraid. I'm thinking of the time when I have tried any sport at all, you name it, volleyball, skiing, competitive sleeping, any sport. I am afraid of trying it for fear of not looking good because I feel like I'm not athletic. And so I miss a lot of opportunities to learn about sports. We do that in a lot of ways. That is called a fixed mindset. And we're going to be talking about mindsets today, fixed mindsets versus growth mindsets. Being willing to change and grow is an important part of being a leader, whether you're a leader of teams or whether you're leading yourself into your life. Having a growth mindset is all about looking forward to the future and becoming something better, making change. Having a fixed mindset, that's keeping the status quo. So there's a professor of psychology that has done a fascinating research on fixed versus growth mindset. And she talks about it in this way. What she did is she did a study where she had two groups of students, and she gave them both the same IQ test. And when they got the results, she reported back to one group saying, "Wow, you did great. You must be really smart." And the other group, she went back to that group and said, "Wow, you did great. You must work really hard." Then they followed this study up with another study where they applied another test with the students. And the test was a pretty easy test to start. The experiments that they had to do and the problems they had to solve were fairly easy, so they started working through the problems. But one group got frustrated and felt bad and quit the test before it was complete. They didn't finish the test. And the other group had similar experiences, but they finished the test and scored pretty well. Now, make a guess. Which group scored the high score? Was it the group that was told they were smart, or the group that was told they work hard?
The group that was told they work hard.
Work hard, exactly. Why? Because when you're told you're smart, what does that mean? Things should come easy to me, right? The math should just go in my brain and go bing, like that. And if the math doesn't, that means I'm not smart. I'm afraid I'm not going to look good. So I quit learning. That's what happened to me. I chose my major because there was no math. And that was not a very good idea, because now, as a much more mature and sophisticated woman, I think, man, I left out so many fascinating majors that I would have loved, and I totally could have done it. I know I could have done it because I have a growth mindset now. But when we started into algebra and geometry, I went into the fixed mindset, and the fear of not looking good stopped me from continuing in math. I told myself I wasn't good. That's a fixed mindset. So let's talk about the fixed and growth mindset. I want to make sure, I'm sorry, this is kind of small, so I'm going to read through it for you. On the blue side, you see the fixed mindset, and that's kind of like keep everything the same. And when they hit different obstacles and challenges, they have a certain response. I'm going to read these responses to you. I'm sorry it's not large enough for you to see. But for the challenge, when you're going through and you hit a challenge, the fixed mindset says that I'm going to avoid that, it's too hard, I can't do it. When the fixed mindset hits an obstacle, they say, I'm just going to give up because I can't overcome this obstacle. The fixed mindset, when it requires a lot of effort to achieve, the fixed mindset says it's not worth the effort. It's like it's going to make a difference anyways. And the fixed mindset, when they receive criticism, tends to think that the criticism, meaning advice, constructive criticism, doesn't apply to them. That the person giving it to them they don't know what they're talking about. And also the fixed mindset, when they see the success of others, they blame that person and say, well, it was given to them. Of course, it's easy for them. I have a friend who is an ultra marathoner. She's won the Xterra World Division. She's the world champ. And I know she gets that a lot from people when she talks about exercising, that they say to her, oh yeah, it's really easy for you to exercise because you're the Xterra world champ. And then just hearing the words come out of my mouth sounds hilarious because that's her full-time job and religion. And so that fixed mindset, what it ends up doing is you validate yourself. Because if you tell yourself that the challenge is too hard, it's not worth the effort, and other people's success is because it was given to them and it's easy for them, then you will have the self-fulfilling prophecy of failure. And then you'll say, yep, I was right. Now the growth mindset is all about the possibilities of what could happen. So when it comes to challenges, they see the challenges, but they see that that's a challenge that they are up for. And when there's an obstacle, They see the obstacle, but they can figure out how to work around that obstacle. And when it requires effort, the growth mindset says, it's worth the effort to do this. And when there's criticism, the growth mindset says, wait, give me more feedback. Why do you see this? How could I do it better? You have the experience, you're telling me, what can I do? And then they listen to it and apply it. And if it, when it comes to the success of others, the growth mindset is inspired and feels like, okay, there's someone else doing it. I can follow their example. I could do it too. What this does for the growth mindset, it just opens up this huge possibility for the future. The ability to just go forward and do all kinds of things. Incredible growth. So the good news is that you are not born with your mindset. You decide your mindset. And you can have several different mindsets in one day. You can wake up with the mindset, I am going to do these things on my list. And then at 11 o'clock after a big sugary break, you can say, I can't do it, it's too hard, I just can't do it, I need a nap. And then later on in the day, you can go, wait, I'm gonna do it, I can do it now. So you can have mindsets that change throughout the day, but you're in charge of it. I want to introduce you to a person that I admire very much. And he has embraced the growth mindset. This is Hari Om. And Hari Om was raised outside of Delhi in a small village. His family were sustenance farmers, and they are Hindu, and they're very devout Hindus. I have so much respect for him and his family. Hari, at a young age, was the Chapati champion. Do you know what Chapati is? Raise your hand if you know Chapati. Chapati. No. It's a wrestling game, and it is intense. After we're done, and you go home and you're bored, Google Chapati. It's fascinating. But he was a village champ, and so he's not afraid of hard work. The guy knows what to do when it comes to hard work. He wanted to support his family and give his children a good home and have his parents have a home that was safe. He wanted his village to have a farm so they could go on. But he had no skill, and he came from a class that is not given that many opportunities. They had the assignment of being farmers, and farmers don't drive cars. But he knew in his heart, if he could start a car company and drive tourists around, that he could provide for his family and his village. So he had to get a growth mindset for this. So going back to the growth mindset, let's just run through these obstacles, okay? His challenges were, no one in the family drives, no one has ever driven. You can't drive, they don't have a car, and they don't have money. It's a pretty big challenge. So the fixed mindset says, can't be done. I'm out. Okay? But Hari had the growth mindset. He said, there's someplace where I can pay someone, because there's a lot of paying under the table, and also get a license. So he found a way. He had to search and use every connection to get that. And he got his driver's license and got a job as a taxi driver. Okay, the next obstacle is obstacles. And for him, the obstacle was he was a taxi driver, but he had no English and no way to meet the tourists. He couldn't talk to them. So how can he get tourists as clients? So the fixed mindset would say, can't be done. It's impossible. These obstacles are too big. I don't speak English. I don't speak French. I don't speak Spanish. How am I going to help tourists? Might as well just be a taxi driver the rest of my life. But that was not what Hari wanted. So he learned how to speak English, and he got a job driving for a company that drove tourists around. And he decided that he would be the best driver. His favorite phrase, and he would say it to me all the time because he happened to end up being my personal driver, his favorite phrase was, your safety is my #1 concern. And he could say it as clearly as I said it to you. And in the time that we worked together, his English improved dramatically. But he took English, he figured it out. One thing that drivers do is they wait. They wait and they wait. And so while he was waiting, he learned English. He had a smartphone and he learned how to speak English, and he used it well. Okay, another challenge that comes when you're trying to do this is the effort it takes. This is not something that in India, coming from the class Hari came from, this is not something you pull off in a year or 2 years. And so it was a long investment of time and work for him, a lot of effort. So for the fixed mindset, they would say, it's not worth the effort, it's a dream, it will never happen. I'm out. Hari said, I'm going to be 35 anyways, I'm going to work hard to get there. And he did, he stuck with it, and he knew that the more work he did, the more he networked, the more people he could meet, the closer he would come to it. And he knew it was worth the effort because it would bless his family and his entire village. What about the criticism? He got critiqued constantly. People telling him, I can't understand your English, because tourists can be a little rude sometimes. People saying, I can't understand your English, you're not groomed right, I don't like the way you present yourself. Your driving is too bumpy, it's too noisy, it's too honky. Has anybody driven in India? 1, 2. Okay, let me tell you, you have never driven until you've driven in India. And it is bumpy and honky more than any country I've ever been in Asia, more than Vietnam. It is unreal. And Hari received criticism about that. Now, the fixed mindset could say, who are you to tell me that I have to drive smoothly in India? Have you seen the traffic? And the way I present myself is my business, not yours. And I can't learn English because nobody in my family speaks it, and I didn't go to high school. But no, Hari received this feedback, took it in, started grooming himself differently, learned the English, and became a smooth, honkless. He never honked. There was like 3 times in 2 years that he honked. Driver. It was just phenomenal. Everyone who drove with me commented on it. Finally, one more thing that people with mindsets do is they look at the success of others. Hari was not surrounded by, but because of where we lived, there were a lot of successful drivers driving celebrities and politicians. Now, Hari had an option. He could say, well, of course those guys are doing really well. They're driving celebrities and politicians, and I'm driving this couple from Idaho, right? But that's not what he did. He realized that he had an opportunity rubbing shoulders with the drivers of celebrities and politicians, getting to know them. How did they get their work? What does their boss do? How much are they paid? Do they ever drive Americans? How can he meet the Americans? Is there a chance to make some money on the up and up? Because Hari was all about the up and up. And he used those successful drivers to inspire himself. And I'm happy to tell you that last year, Hari bought his first car and started a driving business. Congratulations, Hari. And he's on his way to buying his second car. And he's been able to build houses for his aunties and uncles. And these are his parents and his grandfather and grandmother. And they have a house that is painted on the inside and the outside. That may not seem like a big deal to you, but that is a big deal. His entire village has been overhauled because of his efforts. They now have a working farm, the village is successful, and the high school team, the kabaddi team, went and beat the other village. So, is it all because of Hari? It's all because of a growth mindset. That's what he was able to pull off. Now, this is not unusual. I also want to introduce you to Indra. This is Indra. She's standing, she's 40 years old. I know she looks like she's 12. She's standing between my 2 children on Christmas. And she was thrilled, and this was all over her social media. Got so many likes, and I got so many friend requests. I will only add you if I've met you. Indra was born in Darjeeling, which is in northeast India, and she was orphaned at the age of 5. And she did not finish high school, and she had no, she was Christian. She wasn't LDS, but she was Christian, and in a country that's Hindu, that can be difficult. So often she wasn't given opportunities. And like many of you, she was thrust into a leadership position that she did not anticipate. The way that happened is she was lucky to get a job as a maid. And because she works hard and she's smart, she quickly made it into being a maid for foreigners. Now, I'm a little bit When I talk about having a maid, I'm a little bit wary because it may sound like I'm taking advantage of somebody. But it was a beautiful opportunity for me and for her. I could not have done India without her at all. I was lucky to have her, and she was lucky to have me. Well, because she's my maid, I was so busy doing Habitat for Humanity. Every week I was waking up in a new rural village, no idea where I was, with my headlamp to help me at nighttime because often there wasn't electricity. And I decided at a time to take on the Days for Girls. The Days for Girls program is a program that teaches girls about menstruation. In India, it's a taboo topic. And so when girls menstruate, they're treated as if they are diseased. They're not allowed to come into the house, and very quickly they end up dropping out of school. And usually within a year of starting their period, they end up getting married at a very young age and having children at a very young age. So I wanted to help teach girls about this, but I needed help because my job with Habitat for Humanity was so demanding. And then I realized quickly that we needed millions of kits, like 113 million kits in India. So I went to Indra, knowing that she was smart, and even though our English was mostly sign language, I asked her if she'd be willing to help. She was thrust into a leadership position. She had a choice at that point to adopt a fixed or growth mindset. This is Sandeep. Sandeep was one of the trainers that I worked with in Nepal, in Kathmandu. And he's showing the fixed and growth mindset chart that he made for when he's teaching. Indra had the chance at that point to choose and have a fixed mindset and say, no, I can't do this. I don't speak English. I don't know about the female reproductive system myself, because she really didn't, even though she had 2 children and had been a nanny for 20 years. And she could have said, I have no power or control. I'm an orphan with no education from a very low class. But she didn't. She jumped on it because she felt passionate about women being able to control their future and go out and help others. And she wanted to help women understand that when they're on their period, they are their most strong and healthy. That the blood that comes is not diseased blood. It's a fresh lining every single month that is made by your body so that a healthy, strong, fat baby can grow. And so she wanted all the women in India to know that. So she adopted a growth mindset. And when there was a challenge, I could see her brain working as she was such a visual thinker. There's a way to get around this. And when there was an obstacle, I could see her saying, this will not stop us. And when there was a lot of effort required, believe me, going to rural villages throughout India requires more effort than any other travel that I've ever done, and I have traveled. She would find a way. If the driver forgot us, if there was no food, if there was no water or electricity, Indra could figure it out and not let it stop her. And when there was criticism, and there was criticism, because menstruation is taboo, Indra had to listen to people say, we can't do this, it's too sensitive, it will alarm the elders, it's inappropriate. She was able to listen to that criticism and then approach them in a way that said, what if we try like this? That is growth mindset at one of the highest levels. And my Indra, I love her, orphaned at the age of 5, a Christian in a Hindu country without an education, was able to adopt the mindset and tell the elders of the village, the principals of the school, the directors of the orphanage, let's see if we can do that after listening to their criticism. But the real reason I'm telling you about Indra is because of the way she handled the success of others. See, what Indra really wanted is a better world for her daughter, who's in this picture in the pink. She wanted her daughter to know how strong she was. Indra didn't know how strong she was till she saw the curriculum from Days for Girls. And so there was success all around Indra. I was constantly bringing American women and women from Hong Kong and Singapore and Shanghai coming in to deliver these Days for Girls kits. And she could have very easily said, oh, it's easy for you rich ladies from America and Hong Kong. Easy for you. You can hire drivers and eat in restaurants and stay in hotels. Has any one of you slept on a dirt floor? And you know, she's right. It is easy for us compared to her. But she never said that. Instead, she said, what is this? How does this work? How did you do that? How can I do this? Where do I buy this? Where's the thing? Can I enroll in the course? I want to learn the English. Endless questions. Seeing the success of others, she grabbed and said, let me learn from you. That is another example of growth mindset. Indra now has delivered over 2,000, has been a part of delivering over 2,000 reusable hygiene kits to women in India. And the kits themselves are great, but the education that comes with it is the best. Utilizing that growth mindset has been such a valuable tool to her. So, how does this apply to you? You're not a Christian woman living in a Hindu state. You're not a man, the Chabadi champ from your village who feels this incredible responsibility to take care of everyone. You are a blessed student at BYU, Hawaii. Oh man, you have it easy. But I don't think that's true. I'm imagining, again, I'm going to make an assumption that you have had to employ a growth mindset. And I want you to think about that time that you were in a fixed mindset and you had to shift to a growth mindset. And how did that work? What did you do? Maybe it was just the act of applying to come to school here. Maybe it's when you said goodbye to your parents and left your country for the very first time. Maybe it's when you showed up here as a freshman. I don't care where you're from. Showing up at any university as a freshman requires a huge growth mindset, whether you're shifting cultures or not. Where did you have to go from a fixed to a growth mindset? And how did you do it? Just think about that for a second. If we had more time, I would have you grab someone in the room and say, this is how I went from a fixed to a growth mindset. But I know how that conversation goes. First of all, you want to tell why you were in the growth mindset. That right there is going to take 15 minutes, okay? Well, I mean, why you were in the fixed mindset, you got to lay all the foundation. And I was there, my parents were this, and I was like that, and I thought I'll never make it. And then you say, and then this happened, and then I realized I could do this. I actually think I could do this. And you'll remember what caused you to go into that growth mindset. But sometimes when you're in a fixed mindset, it's usually because the challenge is hard and you're overwhelmed and you feel like you can't do it. You feel like it's too hard and it's not fair, and other people do have it easier because their parents pay for everything. Or whatever the excuse is. When you are there and you hear yourself saying, I can't, I'm not good enough, it's too hard, it's not fair, stop, go into a quiet place. Maybe you have to go in your closet and shut the door, go in the bathroom, turn on the shower so your roommates don't hear you and say, I'm in a fixed mindset. I want you to say it out loud. Then I want you to say those thoughts. It's too hard, I can't do it, it's not fair, no one else has ever done it, I'm the first person to go to college in my family, it's too hard. And let yourself just really feel it. Oh, poor me. And really get into it. Just, let that shower run for 5 minutes and feel so bad for yourself. Oh. And then, okay, I did the fixed mindset now. That is old. I'm tired of myself being there. It's time to go to a growth mindset. Once you acknowledge you're in the fixed mindset, you move forward. Do you think that's true? Yeah, I see you nodding. You do think it's true. When you can acknowledge. Now, sometimes when I'm in a fixed mindset, my husband, who is just a brilliant man, I'm saying that because he's right there in the back row, he will say, you're in a fixed mindset. Oh, man, I don't like to hear that. I fight back every time. But then it allows me to say, yeah, and I know how to do the growth mindset, and you do too. I wish I could go forward 10 years and see where you are and what you are doing with your growth mindset. It would shock you and make you feel amazed. Because 10 years ago, when I was sitting in Colorado Springs, wondering what I was going to do when all my children left the house, I had no idea how great it could be. And you sitting here at BYU Hawaii are going to launch into an amazing experience, and using your growth mindset can do fantastic things. I wish I was there to see it. Thank you for having me come speak to you today. Okay, all right, I'm told we should do Q&A. Are there any questions? I can try to answer. Yes?
So how can you help someone that has a bad case of constant fixed mindset to transition?
Oh, that's such a good question. My first question to you is, well, I would imagine if that's the case, it's probably someone you care about a lot, right? You wouldn't be invested in helping just a stranger on the street. So I think when someone's in a really serious case of fixed mindset, first thing you can do is maybe validate how great they are. And I think sometimes when people are really in a fixed mindset, they need to be understood. Like, I can understand why you're feeling this way because of these situations. And then feed back to them what they're telling you. But then I would ask you, have you ever been able to make anybody do anything? No, you can't. You can say, hey, I met this amazing lady. Did you go to my leadership story? You should have gone because she was amazing. You can say, I met this amazing lady who's such a great speaker and so fabulous, and she talked about growth mindset, and this is what she said, and what I see in you is that if you had a growth mindset, da-da-da-da-da. But really, can you make someone do something? No. But you can share what you know. Does anybody else have another suggestion of how you could do that? Yeah?
I offer to go with them,
Go with them.
to walk with them, the path that changes their mindset.
That's true. And I think you can guide someone and encourage and show a way, but we actually can't change anybody. And it's a great responsibility that we take on. We want to help, right? And we should definitely help. But ultimately, it's their decision, just like it's your decision. And you can sit in here to me and listen to me today and leave and say, I'm going to do it, and then maybe not do it. It's your decision. But that is a very good question, and I still try to do it every single day of my life. Make people go into a growth mindset, especially myself. Because self-leadership is the best leadership. You lead yourself first, and then you can lead others. What other questions? Yeah.
How do you go back to starting again? For example, you're in a growth mindset, and then there's a setback, and then you're in a fixed mindset again. How do you start over?
That's a good question. So you guys have heard of a learning curve, right? So you're going along and you're doing pretty well and you're coming up and you're like, I got things together, and then something happens and you fall into a fixed mindset, right? And you're down at the bottom, right? And then you want to get back up. So there's a couple of things you can do. First of all, acknowledge, this has been hard. This is why I'm at the bottom. My classes are too hard. I have too many expectations. I'm feeling really bad about these things. Then look back. What are some other things you've done where you've done well? And then give yourself some time to come back out of that trench. Because often when we grow, we come along, we're doing great, boom, something bad happens, and then we come back out of it. How many of you have learned a second language? Okay, do you remember what it felt like? You're trying to learn the language and you're just failing, and people are talking to you, especially if you go to their country and you don't know, and you're sitting there like, oh, I don't know what's going on. And you're down at the bottom, but you have a choice when you're down at the bottom. You do have a choice to quit, okay? That's a fixed mindset, okay? Or you can say, I've done hard things in the past. I did learn how to ride a bike. I fell off so many times and my knees were stinging, but I got back on that bike and I kept going. And if you keep trying, so if your learning curve goes like this and then you fall right here, and then you keep trying, you're going to pass your learning curve where you were before and become even stronger. But the way life is, boom, you'll fall down again, but then you'll grow up and keep going stronger. So a lot of that is trusting yourself to know that you've done hard things before, you've fallen into the trench, and you have it in you to move forward. And knowing that you do have the choice to quit. I mean, let's take like a class. Let's talk about me in algebra. I'm coming along, subtraction, addition, division. I got it, so it's okay, you know. And then we get into algebra, boom, I can't do it. I try a little bit. So here's where I was with subtraction, division, and, well, division's kind of, I got to use my fingers. But division and then algebra come down here, and I come up a little bit. It's so hard, I quit. Then I go right up to where I was with division, and I just flatline. I don't go further. So you do have a choice to quit. That's always an option. But just know that when you quit, you don't keep going higher in that area. I like to think about riding a bike. You know, does everybody here ride a bike? And do you remember when you rode the bike the first time and you're wobbling and you fall off and you skin your knees, and the palm skinning is the one that stings the worst? And then you have a choice to never ride a bike again. But most of us do the encouragement of siblings and parents and friends, get back on that bike and we ride the bike. And then we come out of the trough and get better. Does that help? Okay. Anyone else? Yes?
In your opinion, how do you think this relates, the growth mindset, to the gospel and our own personal spiritual growth?
I appreciate that question. I think about before we had Carol Dweck and her psychological experiences with two groups of students, and before we had Peter Senge and his quotes about fear being the greatest deterrent to learning, and before we had Habitat for Humanity and Days for Girls in BYU, Hawaii, before we had all of that, we had a master teacher who was Jesus Christ. And he was constantly in a growth mindset and teaching us about growth mindset. And I think about what he taught about the Sermon on the Mount. And with the Sermon on the Mount, that whole sermon is a growth mindset sermon. He talks about people who struggle and how they're going to be okay, how they can move forward. And at the very end, he ends it by saying, "Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." And I think our spiritual growth can often be a mindset thing too. You're cruising along with this nice testimony that you have, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm so good. And then boom, something happens and you're challenged. And then you have to fight your way out. And that requires a growth mindset. All those things, not letting challenges beat you down, not letting obstacles stop your progress, knowing that it's worth the work, it's worth the effort. And when you hear criticisms from yourself and other people, paying attention to those criticisms and figuring out how you can use them to better yourself. And sometimes the success of others, when it comes to the gospel, we see other people, we think, oh man, they have it so easy. Everything's so good in their life. It's easy. But you really know deep down inside for them, it's not easy. So a growth mindset in the gospel is crucial. That's what Jesus Christ taught us. We need to have that. And I think that's part of the challenge. That's what faith is. That's a great question. Thanks, Anne. Yes?
How did you get involved with the projects you have done in Nepal and in India and Cambodia and Philippines and every place else?
Oh, I love that question. I love to talk about it. So we were living in Singapore, and I had a company in the U.S., and we moved to Singapore in 2013. And I decided that as an expat in Singapore, I just wanted to be a lady who lunches. And that means going to museums and getting your nails done and going out to lunch. And that was fun for about 6 months. And then I started thinking, what am I doing with my life? And I had an opportunity to get involved with Habitat for Humanity. They had a leadership project, and I was able to find out about it and get involved and help them create their curriculum. This leadership project was part of the Habitat Young Leaders Build. Habitat for Humanity is most active and most productive in Southeast Asia. That's where most of the work is done there. And they build houses, they build toilets, they build roads and communities. But they wanted the youth to be involved with the building, but the local youth in the rural communities, which usually are affected by floods and earthquakes, which is why they need this, They wanted them to be the ones building these projects, but they didn't have leadership skills because of the education system. So we created a curriculum. We taught it to college students in the big cities like Jakarta, Bangkok, Phnom Penh, Delhi, Kathmandu, Manila. Those college students took that out into the rural community and trained the local students in the community with those leadership skills. And then they started sustainable projects to help their community. There's one girl in particular who was 13 years old who participated in this, 13. And she'd see the women walking with the big towers of water on their head, just causing so much damage. And she went through one of these leadership courses, and her project she wanted to do was to somehow make it easier. So employing a growth mindset, using the sustainable leadership tools that she learned from this course, she was able to contact the people and get water wheels. Do you know what water wheels are? They're big barrels, like this big around and that wide, and they have, it's like a wheelbarrow, but the water, it hooks into the side and you can just push it like this. And so these women who would spend 2 hours a day walking down to the river, putting so much water on their head, and 2 hours walking back, could push a barrel so much easier, saving them so much grief and pain. And a 13-year-old girl came through the course and did this. We have had in Nepal over 20,000 students and youth participate in this and do some incredible sustainable projects for their communities, which are very rural communities and need toilets, roads, water. It's just incredible. And in the Philippines, I'm not sure, I think it's like the number there's like 25,000 youth in the Philippines. Their goal this year is to reach 1 million youth in Southeast Asia and then keep going. So that's how I got involved with that. And then Days for Girls, living in India, I saw the need and I found Days for Girls and started the chapter in Singapore and then worked with it heavily in India, and then I'm now on their committee for development of menstrual health awareness. So it's pretty cool. Thanks for asking that question. And I will say, these were scary things for me. When the opportunity to do Habitat for Humanity was presented, I felt like, oh, I don't know, that could be a lot of work and travel, and I never really traveled. I ended up traveling by myself to places that women are afraid to travel, and guess what? It was awesome. I felt safe. There were some bugs that I wasn't really confident around, but besides that, I loved it, and I hardly ever got sick. It was just a real miracle. Anything else? Emily?
I wanted to ask you about like a moment when you went into the bathroom and turned the shower on and said, it's too hard, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Either Days for Girls or Habitat. Like, did you find it? Because you seem like mature and experienced, and like now you figured it out.
No, I don't. I'm not mature.
Voice in your head that says, I can't do this, who do I think I am?
Yes, all the time. I can't do this, who do I think I am? But occasionally, and maybe you've had this experience, I kind of get that rock star feeling. Have you ever had that rock star feeling? Where you're doing something and you're like, I'm kind of like a rock star. I am pushing 3 huge pieces of luggage full of menstrual kits by myself. In Nepal. Yay for me. And that will carry me sometimes. But there were plenty of times when I woke up in a hotel room with no idea where I was and diarrhea. And those were some hard times. But then the minute you start the work, you feel good. And part of that is just putting your own concerns aside and looking at what's going on around you. But there were 2 years there where I really seriously woke up most days not really sure where I was because I was just going so fast. Yeah, it's really nice to be back in Hawaii where it's so nice. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for having me. Mahalo.